Hey, Veronica, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you, John?
Pretty good, pretty good. You know, watching this movie for this episode, I'm just thinking like 20 years. This was like kind of the beginning of a career lull for M Night Shyamalan. I think it's clear that the twist ending is done, which is why I'm proposing for this episode we do a twist beginning.
Ooh, what does that mean?
I don't know. We got to just twist now. Do a twist.
Uh, John, I am dead.
Well, that's pretty cool because I'm a lady of the water. I think we got a lot of signs that this is going to be a good episode.
I can already see it happening.
Well, let's get into the episode before this gets old.
All right. Yeah, let's not split hairs over these things.
Something glass. Toot toot.
Toot toot. I'm waving because it's the end.
Perfect. What a twist.
What a twist.
Yep.
Hello, John.
Hello, Veronica. People would never believe that we would start an episode with 30 to 45 seconds of bullshit at the beginning. What a twist.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder whether it's good that we do that or not, or if people are like, these people are idiots. I don't want to watch this or listen to this anymore.
Well, we'll check the analytics to see if the episodes start and then go plummet 3 seconds in. Anyway, no twist here. This is Box Office Time Machine, the show where we discuss the number one movie at the box office, either from a current weekend or a weekend far in the past. And you may think that we are discussing Trap, M. Night Shyamalan's latest movie starring Josh Hartnett, but no. First, I don't think that was number one at the box office because
that's
the
a good
world
question. Loves
the
Wolverine.
world thinks
and
Deadpool
Daredevil.
is funny.
Deadpool,
And second, because this is an old movie week. So we are actually jumping back to 2004 to discuss The Village.
Ooh, yes. What is your history with The Village, John?
You know, it's so funny. I was watching this movie and I'm like, God, I don't remember the movie itself this well, but I had such a distinct memory of going to see it. I was 0 years old because, as we all know, I'm less than 20. I was 17 and I was so fucking jazzed. I loved The Sixth Sense. I liked Unbreakable. I think I remember liking that one less, even though people love that movie now. I loved Signs.
Really?
Everyone else was like, water's dumb. And I'm like, actually, I think water's pretty cool. And I think it's cool that water can kill aliens.
I don't think that was the people's problem, but sure.
But I love the idea of an old fashioned kind of colonial ghost story in the woods. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited for this. And I was in the theater. And I remember this was the first instance of me guessing the twist. And I turned to my friend and I said, oh, I think I think they're in modern day. I think that's the twist. Because I've been conditioned, there are no hints. I've just been conditioned to look for the twist. So I guessed it. And I thought, 17-year-old dumb me, thought that I didn't like the rest of the movie because I guessed the twist. But now that I'm old and smart, I know that I didn't like the rest of the movie because the second half of this movie is terrible and the first half of the movie is good.
Yeah,
Veronica, what's your history?
Sorry. I didn't need a cueing off. I just went off. Yeah, I had a similar history to you. I do remember seeing it in a movie theater. I do remember being excited about it. I remember thinking it was a return to form because I did not like science. And I enjoyed this quite a bit when I watched it for the first and only time, because I have never revisited it until
Same
now.
here.
I don't think I guessed a twist. I was trying to remember whether I did or not. I guess we can get into it, but there are several twists, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things.
Part of the problem, I would say.
Yeah. But I remember being like, oh, wow. I think I genuinely remember being kind of surprised seeing Abe from Mad Men, who I did not know was Abe from Mad Men back then, patrolling the perimeter of a park.
Oh shit. Wow, yeah. I didn't even realize that. I also didn't until the end of the movie, even though he pops up throughout. I didn't until he has a line in one of the last scenes. I went, young Jesse Eisenberg.
I know. Why is Jesse Eisenberg in this? Was he really that not famous then?
Oh, that's 20 years ago. That's a long time.
I guess.
Social Network is what, 09?
Right, but he had The Squid and the Whale. I guess that was even later than that, because I was in college with The Squid and the Whale. And I think that's when I knew of him. So yeah, I probably didn't even know.
The Squid and the Whale was the next year.
Yeah.
As was, he was probably in the process of the truly cursed production of the movie Cursed. So
I think that's how I found out about
Greer,
him. Because he was a guest on Conan, and he had a very awkward, nerdy energy that I really loved. And I was like, I have a crush on this guy. But yeah, and then I saw him in The Squid and the Whale. Anyway, less important. So I think in my mind coming into rewatching it, I was like, oh, this is good. This is one of the good ones. And I feel like I had way more issues with it than I expected to. So I guess we can start talking
second
about
time watching it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I remember not liking it. And I kind of had an opposite reaction to you. Not that I liked it this time. Don't worry. But I had an opposite reaction in that for the first half, I was like, this fucking rules. I love this. The dialogue is clunky. It's Shyamalan's dialogue is always it's stylized and you can't tell if it's kind of purposefully weird or just bad. And there are times the fact that it's a quote unquote period setting makes him get around it, but everyone talks in sentences that are 3 paragraphs long. But aside from that, visually, it looks incredible. The cast is
Roger Deakins.
Fucking stacked. Yeah, Roger Deakins. Yeah. They built this whole town. It looks beautiful. Before you see them in full, and that's kind of on purpose, the monsters look very creepy and weird. Once you actually see the costume, it's silly, but that's, again, kind of on purpose. Also, the scene where Bryce Dallas Howard is holding her hand out and Joaquin Phoenix runs at the last second and grabs her right before the monster gets her. And then the one part of this movie that is genuinely great, the James Newton Howard score kicks in. That scene is fantastic. There's a lot of great stuff in this first half. There's some bad stuff, and it just starts taking over more and more and more. I guess the question is, I think like, I'm excited to talk about this. And my question to you is, why do you think this doesn't work?
Well, I think so. For me personally, rewatching it, knowing the twist, I just kept questioning the reality of all of it. Because I feel like it just, let's say, so the twist is, and if you don't want to hear the twist, maybe stop listening to it until you come back. But the twist is that it's the village is actually in present time. It lives in, or it exists on a reservation owned by, I guess, the family of one of the founders of the village.
He's very rich, apparently.
Yeah.
Very, very rich.
And they kind of pretend. That part is not my issue. And they pretend to be some sort of Mennonite type society as a result of all of them having been victims of crimes ish, where they want to kind of escape the violent world, the violent present day, into, I guess, a time when things were good. And that on paper to me sounds great. Like, I think that is actually a very cool conceit. It's kind of similar to the conceit of Don't Worry, Darling, which is a movie that I actually liked way more than other people, even though it is kind of problematic. But I like that idea makes sense.
I think it's crazy that M. Night was having an affair with Joaquin Phoenix in the production of this movie.
So all of that makes sense. Or, like, that's fine. But then, considering that, it just seems like I don't necessarily understand. For example, so they want to isolate themselves from the violent world of the outside. Why do they choose to live in a different century? Like, why... You know, it's never clear to me why they have these like strict gender roles, why they choose to live like the Amish. None of that makes sense. It doesn't make sense to me that no one would ever chance upon them ever. Like, even if they do live in like a gated community, I guess, quote unquote. Like, how, like... Could hikers never chance upon their village? Like, do they not see airplanes or helicopters in the sky? Like, skywriting?
They explain that.
Maybe I missed that part. But so there's that. Then there's also the issue of, like, if they are aware, like, if they are allowing someone like Bryce Dallas Howard's character to venture out, like if they deem it important enough for her to go and fetch medicine, why send her? Like, I know that in the movie, it sort of is like, oh, like she's blind, so she will not see. But all of these adults know what the outside world is. Like, why can't William Hurt...
They made an oath, Veronica. Therefore, William Hurt can't just walk over to the edge of the property he owns. He has to send his blind daughter. No, that's a huge problem, and it's a huge writing thing.
Yeah.
Do you have more?
No, those are kind of the main ones, but it makes sense. Like, if the first time you see it, like, all of it sort of makes sense because you still don't really know what it is, right? So you kind of go along with it. And when the twist happens, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't think of it. Or maybe I did think of it. But still, it kind of like, it sort of like maybe makes sense. But if you watch it knowing what happens, it all just like doesn't add up.
So there are a few things in there. There are a few things you mentioned that are like logic problems. And I am frequently on the case of like, I don't mind those things in movies, especially like movie. It's a silly metaphor. Like, they do explain the planes that he pays. M. Night in his cameo says that, oh, remember how journalists discovered that we paid off the government to keep no-fly zone, yada, yada, yada. And I honestly...
Maybe I missed that.
Yeah, because it's stupid. And the movie should have ended by that point, and it just fucking keeps going. And I have some info on that from a recent interview with him about why it keeps going. And I want to remind me to get back to that.
Sure.
But I don't care about that stuff. There are huge problems in this movie. Two huge problems as I see them. One is the structural problem in that they reveal the twist too soon and the movie keeps going. And we could talk about that later. But you touch on what I think is the biggest problem, which is the characterization of the elders. The elders are villains. They're the fucking villains of this movie. Yeah. A few years later, in the 10 years after this movie, we got two of my favorite films that are doing and succeeding at what this movie fails at doing. And that is The Witch from 2014, 10 years later. The Vivitch. And then less periody, but thematically similar, a few years later, we get Dogtooth.
Yeah, that's what I kept thinking about. Yeah.
And the thing is, both of those movies accept and realize that the adults are the villains for putting the young people in this restrictive bullshit society. Obviously, The Witch is a little different because they're all part of this, religious fundamentalist thing. But the adults in the village are not treated as villains. In fact, they are treated incredibly sympathetically. And the whole time, like, it starts with Brendan Gleeson's son has died of what we hear later was a disease that could have been cured. His one of the first shots of this movie is a child coffin. And just knowing that, these people are fucking villains. And I also had a thing where I was watching it where, even though I knew the whole thing about they were all family members of victims of crimes, my mind kept thinking, oh, they're like puritanical. Like why else would you, like you said, why would you choose to live in a society like this with these strict gender roles and all this like repression and stuff, unless you also wanted to live in a repressive society, unless you were like religious fundamentalists and you hated not just the crime of the modern world, but the sex and the drugs and the talking back to your elders, whatever the fuck. But that's not their deal. In fact, they're like kind of, when we see them in the past, they kind of look like a bunch of hippies.
Yeah.
And it would make so much more sense if they were strictly villains. And let's say the romance was something they didn't approve of. So like the romance between Bryce Dallas Howard and Joaquin Phoenix. Like, I'm just throwing it out there, and you wouldn't have done this in 2004, but like, what if it was a gay relationship or something, And I think I have the answer for why this is, why he went in this route, because I was reading about the movie in the Wikipedia article, and all the contemporary reviews mentioned something that never once was in my head. Do you know what it is?
No, I don't remember. I haven't read the Wikipedia.
Every single review from 2004 specifically mentions 9/11. This is a 9/11 movie. And the metaphor makes no sense.
No.
The metaphor makes no sense, which is why 20 years later, where, I mean, obviously you and I have never forgotten 9/11. We think about it every day. But didn't think about it watching this movie because it's a weird metaphor. First off, Americans were not isolationist after 9/11. We had a 20-year war to follow that because of how not isolationist we were. But I think that kind of vision that this is a story about scared people who faced violence and wanted to hide themselves away. I think the reason they are depicted as sympathetic is because he's talking about scared Americans after 9/11. And it's that kind of weird thing where nowadays we think about America after 9/11 and we're like, oh boy, it was a bummer how we acted. We made some pretty fucked up decisions. But at the time, 2004, and when he's making it earlier than then, I think there is still a great degree of sympathy. To date this podcast, in the current political climate, they just announced Tim Walz as Kamala Harris's VP candidate. And if you're listening to this in the future, you know if that was a good decision or not. I'll say right now, I think it's a good decision. And I'll edit that out of the video, out of the podcast if I'm wrong. But, and there are all these stories about how he joined politics in 2006 because the Democratic Party was trying to recruit veterans to join in to speak about the growing anti-war movement of 2006. 2004, there is not a growing anti-war movement. There was an anti-war movement. I remember protests. I remember seeing protests in 2003 when the Iraq War began, I think. My dates are correct there.
No, it was 2003, yeah.
Yeah, but there wasn't now. So I think in his mind, the elders are Americans who are traumatized after 9/11, and therefore he is depicting them sympathetically in a way that you would depict those people in 2004. Whereas now I look at both America's foreign policy after 9/11 and at the characters of these movies in this movie. And I go, oh, you're a bunch of fucking assholes.
Yeah, I think it's true. And obviously without the benefit of hindsight to kind of look at it from the outside and see like, oh, the way that we behave right now is bad or whatever. Maybe it's harder for him to make that extra like leap and like have this movie be a commentary as opposed to maybe a mirror. But I also, to be honest, I don't think that he is capable of doing that. Like, I don't think M Night Shyamalan is the guy to make that. Because I feel like making a movie, like, even right now, you could make a movie. I mean, Don't Worry, Darling was essentially kind of a similar movie where like someone kind of harkens back to gender roles or whatever it is. And actually we do have kind of all the MAGA stuff is about like, hey, let's bring America back to where it was. So like, but it's just in my mind until I started talking about like what is their motivation for it. MAGA didn't even click to me because I feel like the personalization or like basically the way that he writes these characters, they have no interior in my opinion. Like what is Sigourney Weaver's deal? Like we don't really know. There's like that weird like moment where she kind of tries to shake William Hurt's hand. He doesn't shake it, and then
which is a lovely scene that doesn't go anywhere.
It doesn't go anywhere. I think it only exists so that we can see that he does shake someone else's hand and this is the person he has a crush on. Sure. But I'm sorry.
Wait, did you think he has a crush on Cherry Jones because he shakes her hand?
No, not Cherry Jones. The other woman, the one that he later like hugs and discovers or like reopens.
That's his wife.
Yeah, no. So he like likes her. I didn't even know that she was his wife, to be honest.
He doesn't shake Sigourney Weaver's hand because he has adulterous feelings towards her. So he doesn't allow himself to get closer. That's what Joaquin Phoenix says to her, which is similar to what he's doing to Bryce Dallas Howard. He's purposefully staying away from her because he's so in love with her. But none of that matters.
No, but that is exactly my point. We don't really understand how any of their desires or current behavior connects to the motivation that brought them there. Like, yeah, like why are they now scared to shake hands with each other when they were like all hugging each other in that picture in the beginning? Like, it's just, and none, I feel like a good metaphor, which is, it seems like even in the post 9/11 era, that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to make some sort of an allegory for the current situation that we are in. But I feel like a good allegory deals with sort of the faults of and the weaknesses of the people and how those weaknesses lead to their demise. And I feel like we didn't really get any of that. And then at the end, it was like, well, she came back. And because Adrian Brody's character, by the way, the worst character, I feel like in this movie.
Let's put a pin on this. We got to have a long conversation about the Adrian Brody character, because that was so much worse than I remembered. Not his performance necessarily, just how that character is used. We'll come back to it.
Sure, but like because of a fluke, which is literally just him writing himself out of it, they get to continue to live the way that they do because presumably Evie, the Bryce Dallas Howard character, is not going to say anything, or to the extent that, because she does know that the monsters are not real. That she knows for sure. She might not know that they're in present day, but or that there's like
she
advanced
actually
society.
Doesn't know that they're not real.
Yeah.
She actually doesn't know that they're not real. She knew that some of them weren't real. And William Hurt specifically says to her that there were rumors of monsters in the past. And then she gets chased around by, we find out, Adrian Brody.
She thinks that they are real, in fact.
When we get the scene with young Jesse Eisenberg's, I think, one line where he says, Bryce Dallas Howard is back, and she got chased by a monster and she killed it. And we see Adrian Brody's parents cry because they realize that she actually killed their son. And then William Hurt says, we'll go get him. We'll say the monsters killed him. Your son made our stories true. Right.
Which is, it's such a cop-out, like film writing wise. Obviously, if I were one of these elders and that happened, I would be like, phew, that's great. But like for a compelling, dramatic story, it just doesn't, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work as an allegory because it's missing the hubris. It's missing the kind of like, it has an original sin technically, but it just doesn't reckon with it in any compelling way. It just is sort of like, well, I guess we get to live like this and that's fine.
Because it's like, thematically, what is it about? If it is about 9/11, and maybe like we actually need to get in a time machine, which we do own. Listeners, we have a time machine.
It's in the name.
To be clear, we are recording this in 2004, and we should probably go out and ask people how they feel about violence. But like, having it be about violence doesn't make sense, because wanting to get away, like you said, wanting to get away from street crime, which is what it is. All of the crimes are like, a group of men killed my sister in an alleyway. There's one, which is William Hurt's father was killed by his business partner. But the rest of them are just like street crime. Wanting to get away from street crime is one thing. You could be isolationist. But why do you also choose to live in a repressive society? They keep saying because it was an innocent time. But it just doesn't make sense. And then, like, their whole behavior doesn't make sense. So then when later...
But also, was it an innocent time? Like, one of them...
No.
William Hurt is a professor of American history. Like, he should know that it wasn't. Like, it's just... All of these people are... Or it seems like they're mostly educated people. They're not... they don't strike me as dummies who think that everything was great when TV was black and white. Or it just, like, I never, like, there's no compelling reason for them to do it. Other than, like, it would be cool for the twist to be that, they're not there.
Now, like, William Hurt, like, he says he breaks their rule by sending her out. But if he's willing to break his rule, why doesn't he just fucking go? It just doesn't make sense. But if the movie was structured the way it should be, like, you know, Dogtooth, where we recognize that these parents are the villains, they're not sympathetic. It should have been that maybe like 2004, let's go believable. They're not going to make like it a gay romance, but maybe it's something where Bryce Dallas Howard, where the characters are caught, you know, having sex or something. They're doing something impure, and they get punished by their parents, you know, something like that. Then we have this injury. We have this whole idea of these parents are trapping these kids in and will allow them to die of like treatable diseases because of their crazy beliefs, which very relevant. I mean, we have, you know, conservatives for decades, including back in 2004. It's possibly even worse now, but trying to block all kinds of like sex education, which studies have proven leads to teen pregnancy, leads to teens developing, contracting STIs. Like, you take away education, it leads to pain and suffering. If we had something like we have that, they're villains. And then we have the Bryce Dallas Howard character go out into the woods, not with the blessing of her father, but against his wishes, and still believing that the monsters are real, because that's the big structural problem I want to get to. I'm talking about the thematic one, but like, she goes out. Then she gets chased by a monster, and the monster dies, and we see that the monster is her dad. Then we get right at the end of the movie, we don't fucking live with it for 10 minutes. We get her crossing the wall and finding out that that it's the present day. That's like thematically, like, we get, oh, this is a story about repressive parents repressing their kids. Then we get, oh, they made up the monsters as a way to repress them. Then we get, right after it, the big reveal, they made up everything. I think that would have been a great movie. I don't fucking know. But I think that at least would have, you know, followed through. And right now, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You want to talk about... Sorry.
Oh, no, it seems like he was scared of making any of these actors real villains, almost. I don't know. It just feels odd that there are, at the end of the day, like, no real villains in this. And I guess that's fine. The villain is society or modern society or whatnot. But yeah, it just doesn't come across. Let's talk about the Adrian Brody character.
Let's save Mr. Brody for a bit. Let's talk just quickly about the structural problem of revealing that the monsters don't exist, like 30 minutes before the movie, then having her venture into the woods. I remember it, like, that's the one thing, like, I remember in the theaters ever being like, well, why is this scary? We know they're fake. And that he tries to do a thing of being like, I mean, there were rumors they might be real, and it doesn't make sense. And, you know, it'll dovetail with the Adrian Brody, because the only fucking reason the Adrian Brody character exists, the only reason, is because he went, well, I need there to be a scary monster, but I know that the elders, because they're not villains, would not genuinely try to scare or harm the kids. So I need someone who would act weird. But who would act so unusually? I know. I'll create a developmentally challenged character who just acts stupidly the whole movie, and all the fucking scares will be based around him. Why?
Yeah, it's so weird. The performance is so weird that I like kept hearkening back to like Tropic Thunder.
Simple Jack.
It's just, it was basically a kind of a similar thing, and I kind of wondered, did they mention it in the movie and I forgot about it in Tropic Thunder? Did they mention the village? I don't know, because I know they mention like Radio and Forrest Gump. Do they mention the bad ones? Well, not that Radio is good, but
I think the village, 4 years later, I think the village was already so forgotten that they don't even mention it.
Yeah, I suppose so. But yeah, so he has two roles. He has that role, and I guess he's also like the guy who stabs Lucius, the Joaquin Phoenix character, which again, all of it just seems like things that happen to move the plot along, but things that don't really have emotional resonance when they happen. The fact that he does it as opposed to, like something that the elders do, or maybe even better, something that happens due to their hubris or due to their sort of coddling ways, like would have been way more interesting than like, this character whose role it is to be erratic when needed is just doing all this damage. It just feels, sure, fine, whatever, but it's just like, it doesn't feel dramatically compelling, I guess.
So I'm watching it for the second time. It's the first time watching it knowing the ending, other than guessing it midway through last time. But so I'm following all the plot beats, and everything kind of makes sense. Like all the behavior of the elder, like he's clever in how all the dialogue that the elders say, you realize, knowing the twist, that they're talking about not what are the creatures doing? It's like, what could the creatures do to scare people? How can we keep Joaquin Phoenix from leaving and stuff like that? And then basically there's the creatures that are played by the elders, and then there's whenever Adrian Brody gets the disguise and fucks around. And all the things with the dead animals, that is Adrian Brody. And that's why at the beginning, William Hurt is like, I don't think the creatures did it. Because he knows they didn't do it, because he's the fucking creatures. But like, I knew we were coming to the point where he stabs Joaquin Phoenix. And, it's well set up. I remember specifically seeing that in the theater and people fucking gasping. Because we've just had the sweet love story, and that he just gets fucking stabbed for no reason. And watching it this time, I'm like, oh, he stabs him because he's worried about hiding his tracks, because he doesn't want to get in trouble for dressing up and killing those animals. He thinks he's going to get caught, or he thinks he lured the monsters. No. He just stabs him because he's got a crush on Bryce Dallas Howard?
Yeah.
Is that your read as well? What
that
a
was my
fucking
understanding.
awful character. Like, there's just, I mean, not to like, White Knight or whatever, but like, there's just something very weird about introducing this developmentally challenged character, and he's just irredeemably an asshole. And everything that happens is his fucking fault, not because he misunderstands stuff, but because he's just a prick.
Well, he could be misunderstanding things, I guess. But you are introducing a character that doesn't necessarily have agency or a full understanding of what's happening. So it is sort of not totally dissimilar to Twisters, where it's like you have like a weather phenomenon that doesn't necessarily have an objective or whatever it is. It's just there to cause chaos. And Adrian Brody is sort of like the twister of this thing. It's like, well, we need these people in harm's way, so we're gonna like have the twister, go here and stab someone, and then we need Bryce Dallas Howard to conveniently not still know that the creatures are not real, so we're gonna have him run around there, and because he has this like developmental issue, like it could just be like, oh, it's because of that, and we don't actually have to explain anything, and it just, okay, fine, but it just doesn't make for super compelling film.
He's not a character. He's a plot device. And if you just made the adults clear villains. You can give nuance to them, try to find some sympathy to them, whatever. But like, if you just make them villains, you don't need him. No. Make them disapprove of the love story. Make them purposefully trying to scare anyone who goes out into the woods. Make them realize Bryce Dallas Howard has broken the rules and try to chase her down. Like, you do not need this fucking character. And he's borderline offensive. Yeah. I don't blame Adrian Brody for it. I don't think this is not like Adrian Brody randomly doing a Rastafarian accent while hosting SNL, which is why he's banned from ever hosting again. Look it up.
Yeah.
But this is like
weird. It's not only an accent, by the way. It's also a hat with costume. Dreads.
Yep. I think he's genuinely trying. And if you told me that he went and studied with people who actually had developmental challenges, fine. But, you know, there's a reason we don't really do performances like this anymore, for the most part. But like, when we used to do them, going back and watching movies from the past, I give a little leeway to people who are like, oh, we don't really do that anymore, but I can see that your heart was in the right place and you were trying. Like,
oh yeah, that's not my problem with it. He was doing what he was asked. He performed what he was asked.
100% the writing. Do you want to know the original version of the ending?
Sure. I do have something to say about the forest once we're done with that.
Ooh. So recently, M Night Shyamalan did an interview on a podcast, and I should say what the podcast is.
Is it Box Office Time Machine? Is it us?
Do you remember
the
when we
twist is Box Office Time Machine?
He was on the Real Blend podcast to promote his new movie, and apparently that his cameo was different. The ending was much shorter. And it was just her climbing like the wall and almost getting hit by a truck. And you would have just suddenly heard he was a modern song. He was considering Jay-Z's 99 Problems would have suddenly been blasting on the soundtrack. And he would have been a truck driver. And apparently there was they were huge reshoots to reshoot that whole sequence to add in Abe from Mad Men. But then and I'm pretty sure that's why they also added in that whole thing about the plane, because I'm sure test audiences hated that ending and also were like, what about planes? So now we have that incredible shoehorn line,
which
we
I
pay people not to fly
entirely.
planes. But I think all these like this article in like Slash Film is like, it would have been even worse, and I'm like, no, it wouldn't have, because that's not the fucking
better.
problem. The problem, it's not great that that ending, the movie just does not end. It just keeps fucking going. I do not care about the security guard. I get that like he's trying to show that like actually the people in the towns are nice, but like I don't fucking care. It just keeps fucking going. But the real problems are the entire last act. Her finding out that the monsters aren't real should have happened 2 minutes before the movie ends, not 25 minutes before it ends. But yeah. What do you want to say about The Woods? The original title of the movie.
Is that true? Well, it's more just like the Bryce Dallas character in general. I feel like, but as it manifests in The Woods specifically, is that I feel like she's not believable as a blind person. Not like necessarily her performance is that, even though that also is true, because I feel like for a blind person, she knows very well where to focus her gaze. Like when people are talking to her, especially if they talk about like, oh, look at someone else. And she looks directly at them, even though she's not supposed to. Maybe she sees color everywhere, whatever. But in the Adrian Brody chase, so she falls into a pit, a trap, I guess. And then she climbs out of it. She notices a branch that kind of protrudes out. So I guess and then she walks a long time, like she gets chased, whatever. And when she gets chased, she comes back to a branch, and through that, she realizes that, oh, there's like a big pit right next to it. That makes no sense. Like, how? Like, there are no other branches in the woods? Like, would she not be entirely confused? How did she even make it out to that road? Like, I don't know. It's so... I know that it's a movie and it's supposed to happen and, you know, she has magical powers, whatever. It felt very odd. Like, to the point where I kept forgetting that she was blind. You know, like, some of the stuff that she did was like, I don't know. Anyway, it's not the biggest gripe. It would have been like totally okay if the rest of the movie held up, but it just kept annoying me how she was only blind when she needed, like, she had her blindness proved to be like a hindrance to her only in certain convenient moments, and in other times it was totally like, okay, she could basically run and find branches and not trip. Like, imagine you close your eyes and you walked into the woods, you would trip like 1,000 times. I just don't. Anyway, sorry, rant over.
I am willing to believe. I mean, people who are blind their whole life, and it implied she lost her sight, or either
yeah,
from
but
birth or
this
very
is
young.
not a familiar environment to her, right? I can totally
True.
understand her. Like, this is a whole new thing. Anyway,
My question
not a big
is like, why choose to make the character blind? We've figured out why Adrian Brody's character is handicapped. It's because he has to act absurdly, and that's the only way M. Night could come up with a character who acts so fucking stupidly and illogically. I know will make him developmentally challenged. But it would make more sense to give her a condition that could be helped in the modern world. Like, Joaquin Phoenix has that line where he says, maybe in the towns they have something that could cure you. They don't. As far as I know, you can't cure blindness. If it was something like she was deaf or like hard of hearing, then there are not even like cochlear implants, but she could have like a hearing aid. Something like that to reinforce the idea of like, just if the parents just let them fucking go out there. But I'm not bothered by the silliness of her. She is of her doing so well in the woods because she's blind. It's the movie's purposely made her very vulnerable. I don't think it does enough with the blindness on a fear level. But at that point, like, I'm so checked out of the movie at that point because like, I know the monsters aren't real. I don't care. Yeah, I'm not like, maybe in a better movie, I would have been more bothered by her ability to travel the woods. But at that point, I don't give a shit. So
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It was like, I think if the rest of it kind of made sense and didn't lend itself to so many nitpicks and actual major flaws, it wouldn't really be a problem if it was to serve a better movie. I recognize that she is there to be blind so that she can't see, that they're not, you know, in whatever time she believes they are. Or there's, I guess, no modern society out there. But also, why do they speak weird? Like, they speak like, you know, like, I guess what someone's impression of someone from older times would be, right? But
this is not The Witch. This is not Robert Eggers doing years of research on how people talk.
I'm just thinking, even in the world of that movie, I'm not even like shitting on Shyamalan's dialogue here. It's more that like these people come from, let's say, the 70s. I don't know. So they have fairly modern speaking patterns and, you know, expressions and word selections. So, but these same characters now in the village speak like they're from the 1800s or something like that. So did William Hurt and Sigourney Weaver have to like relearn like reteach themselves how to speak in this like weird way. Like I'm thinking through the logic of just like how would that have worked? Like if they actually were characters who decided to do this.
It's been 25 or so years. I did think, like, again, if the movie just admitted that they were villains, what we could have had? We could have had a character who wanted to leave earlier. Maybe we see Sigourney Weaver with a baby in the picture, which I think is supposed to be Joaquin Phoenix. I don't know why we never get a scene. I know he was a baby, but it would have been interesting if part of his desire to go to the town is he has dreams where he dreams of a wonderful place from his memory, and he thinks it's the town's. Like, or what if we had a character where so all these people just moved and then just started having children is basically what happened, I guess. They were all child bearing age. There's no one there who was like 3 when they moved and like kind of remembers it. But if you had someone like that who it was like, you know what? Fuck you guys. I'm sick of doing this. And then they made an example of him. Like, that could be a scary scene, but we can't
even one
do
of
that.
the elders. Like, it could be that one of the elders like got tired of it or something and wanted to leave.
Brendan
and then
Gleeson.
They died. Yeah. Like Brendan Gleeson is like, fuck you guys. You didn't let me help my son. Or even like start the movie earlier and have his son be sick and have him go somewhere and then be killed by the monsters. And that's how you're introduced to the monsters or something like that. And then you realize in retrospect that they killed him because he shouldn't have left. But
we get William Hurt's, like, one of his first lines is like, you may question why we came here. It's at the funeral of the son. And Brendan Gleeson like holds his hand and, like, knowing the twist, it's him being like, no, I understand that, like, this had to happen for us to maintain this. But then later they're all like, ugh, I'm over this. Let's stop doing this. Just make them fucking villains. Just make them villains.
But also, what is it about it that makes them over it? Like, you never really see them being tired of the charade or them like their mask falling for a second or something like that. There's none of that.
We have one scene. We have one scene with Brendan Gleeson talking to Joaquin Phoenix. And it's not exactly what you're talking about because it's not enough. He says a few things that are like, you can't run away from your troubles. Basically, he says, like, I forget who of his family members died.
I guess basically
son, right? In the past.
Oh, I see. I think he said his brother.
Yeah.
He was the one
So
with
he
the brother.
says something like, you can't, we thought we could run away from our troubles, but there's nowhere you can go. And the implication is he like, I came here because I lost a family member, and I came here, and what happened? My son died. Like, that's an interesting character, but we don't go far enough. And then the next time we see him is at the end, where he's like, well, if it's time for us to give this up, I guess let's give this up. And it's like, it's so boring. I was watching the trailers, and I think there was one scene with him that looked like it was cut. So maybe there was more to that because it's such an interesting thing that just is never touched on.
Yeah.
Really.
Sorry to nitpick one last time, but they have all these like gas lamps and stuff. They don't seem to have electricity. Where does the gas come from? Like, somewhat like, do they have a pump somewhere secret, or does someone actually go into town and get some containers? I don't know. It just seems like there's no way for that village to be realistically self-sustaining to the extent that we saw. You know what I mean? Even the Amish trade with the outside world. I don't know. It just kind of introduces more questions.
You know what would explain it? If the village elders are all fucking hypocrites.
Yeah.
If they do get stuff from town. Or you have a character, you find like they find out that one of the elders has been like, what if there's a scene where like they find out that one of the elders has been going into town to meet with a woman or something. And in the end, we know like, oh yeah, he's going to town, like he's going to Modern Life and he's like, I don't know, fucking a sex worker or something. But like all the other elders like tell him he's been banished and he is forced to go into the woods and he's scared. And we think it's because he's scared of the monsters, but what he's actually scared of is his friends are going to murder him. And then they do. They dress up and they murder him and they make an example of him. Like, there's so many things you can do. I keep just saying the same thing. Just admit that they're the fucking villains.
Yeah.
This is such post 9/11 bullshit. We're the bad guys. Admit it.
But even like, I don't know that like necessarily like they could be bad guys who started from a relatable place. Because I'm like, again, like we weren't the villains in 9/11. 9/11 has made us villains because it drove us insane and led us to make irrational decisions, which is sort of essentially what's happening here. But like, it's never underlined. It's never reckoned with. It's always... I feel like it just is being wishy-washy about about the realities or about like what would happen had these people have actually gone through with it and created their own Mennonite society. Like, we are just not exploring enough.
I think it's possible to give him the benefit of the doubt. It's possible that he is kind of trying to say that, like, oh, something horrible happened to us, but we reacted poorly, but that doesn't give you license to react poorly. And maybe in 2004, for a major studio release, America just wasn't ready to hear that. It's possible, but then again, it's like it just doesn't work as a 9/11 metaphor because no one reacted by fucking going and cosplaying at Ren Fair. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, or even, as you mentioned, being an isolationist. It was quite the opposite of what happened. But yeah, all right. Well, I think we actually, through this conversation, have improved the movie. So if someone does want to make a remake of The Village, please use our ideas. With credit, of course. But I think there's a good movie there. And as we mentioned, stylistically, it looks really cool. A lot of the color choices, the eerie score, all that works. The production design. It's just, maybe hire us next time.
Now, Veronica, before we wrap things up, I would like to play a little game with you.
Oh boy. All right.
I would like to play a little game. Now,
I know there were no sequels to this.
What we've learned today, clearly in our discussion, is that twist endings are great and always work. And I think it's time for a twist ending renaissance. So I'm going to tell you some movies that are coming out next year in 2025. And I want you to come up with some M Night Shyamalan in his prime style twist endings.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Are you ready?
Let's do it. Yes.
All right. First movie, Paddington in Peru. Synopsis is, or the basic summary, Paddington and his adopted family, the Browns, decide to visit his Aunt Lucy in Peru. But circumstances lead them towards misadventures in the Amazon rainforest and mountains of Peru. What is your M. Night twist ending?
Well, his family is dead. He is there by himself, of course. And then when he finds his grandma, she's also dead. Or his aunt? I believe it's his aunt is what it says. Or they're not even in Peru. They never go to Peru. He is actually in like a digital world where he thinks that he finds her, but actually she has been dead, and it's very sad. He's like living the life of an adventure that where he reunites with her, but he never actually does in real life because she's dead.
I think it's like those horrible things they pitched about putting cows in dairy farms with VR helmets to make them think that they're not in like factory farming. And the Browns have sold him to a zoo, and he's got a VR helmet on. Our next movie, Disney's Snow White. We have the live-action remake of Snow White, directed by Mark Webb, with a screenplay by Greta Gerwig.
Oh, so this might be
Didn't
good.
know that. Oh, yeah, I'm sure it'll be great. All the live-action Disney remakes have been awesome. So yeah, this is, the premise. It's Snow White. What's the twist ending?
Well, she definitely has a vagina and goes to a gynecologist. We know that.
So it's just the ending of Barbie. That's the twist.
The twist.
The twist is the last 10 minutes of the movie, it just switches reels and we just watch the end of Barbie.
Yes. Well, no, the twist is kind of similarly to Unbreakable. The evil queen is actually there to challenge Snow White. She is like, I am trying to figure out what makes you so beautiful so that I can be beautiful. And that is why I want to poison you, because I need your essence or something like that. And it makes as much sense as it does in Unbreakable.
Well, maybe she's going around and just poisoning apples with a lot of girls, and because she's looking for Prince Charming. So she knows that if she just keeps poisoning girls, eventually Prince Charming will come and kiss her.
Yes.
So Snow White isn't special. She's one of many. And she looks around and just sees rows after rows of glass sarcophaguses with other girls. We've got Hay Yellow and Grass Green, all the other girls in this world.
And the dwarves are all Prince Charmings from the past who attempted to kiss the wrong color girls.
Maybe, if when she finds a Prince Charming, she marries them. But when they let her down, because she's a perfectionist, when they don't meet her standards for being her spouse, she poisons them and turns them into large mining gnome creatures.
Yes. Yeah. It's also brought to you by Travelocity. So there's going to be like a cross promotion with the Travelocity gnome.
Okay, this is good. Okay. All right.
It's not too late, guys. You can re-edit your movies.
Next up, we have Michael, the Jackson family estate approved biography of Michael Jackson.
I was like, the remake of the John Travolta movie that everyone forgot.
I would so much prefer seeing that.
I mean, maybe the twist in a nice way is that he's not a pedophile and child molester.
I think the twist is you sit down and you're expecting a hagiography or hagiography?
Hey there, geography.
Hey, geography.
I think
you're
it's
expecting this
geography.
Yeah, you're expecting just like an ass-kissing movie about how great he is. But instead, you sit down, and the twist is just text appears on screen, and they go, sorry, we just needed more money to give for reparations to the victims. All of your ticket money is going to that. Instead, we're now going to screen Leaving Neverland.
I like that. Yes. But, maybe Joe Jackson is actually like the big villain in it. You know? Like he's the one who just like, well, actually that is real life, right?
Yeah. Maybe he teams up with the Beach Boys' dad and they become supervillains together.
Wow. Crossover.
Okay, next up, this is one I know you're really excited about. You've been talking about this forever. You're just like, can 2024 just end so I can get to sit down in a theater and watch this movie? This is, of course, Minecraft, the movie. The movie based on the computer game where you build stuff.
Yeah, like children build stuff and apparently also bully other children, but virtually.
It's such a rich source material for a narrative. Veronica, what's the twist?
Well, so I think the twist is kind of like The Village. There's a little guy, let's call him Brick. No, is that the guy from Lego?
Minecraft Steve is, I believe, the main character.
Okay, so Minecraft Steve has been crafting his jewel of a mine. Do they build mines? Are these like, I don't know, societies? But then he realizes that he actually built his society in a different universe, and he actually built his society on a Fallout island or whatever. Ooh. And then he has to like reckon with being killed by teens or something. I don't know what Fallout is about. Isn't it like Battle Royale? Don't you? Man, okay.
You were clearly the right person to ask for I
think these are good ideas.
Video game lore.
Sorry. Give me one about Free Cell. Is there anything about Minesweeper the movie?
Here's one for you. Mission Impossible 8. What's the twist?
Dun, dun, that it's gonna be great. What is the twist? Oh,
well, the actual twist is that, and I'm calling this, I called it on our earlier Mission Impossible 7 episode. What's her name? Captain Carter. What's the actress's name?
Haley Atwell.
Haley Atwell is his daughter. That's the twist. That's not a joke. I'm calling it everywhere so I can tell everyone I told you so.
But also
right,
the AI is actually like real people and not a conspiracy, so it has motives and feelings. And
we're just saying
sense.
Things that we hope happen. I'm saying if it's a Shyamalan twist, I'm saying that it ends with the reveal that the AI is actually God.
Ooh. Oh, like so Ethan Hunt dies? He finally dies. Ooh, that's interesting.
But he's resurrected. Ethan Hunt becomes Jesus.
Yeah, he's resurrected. He becomes like a Jesus-like character, like Bruce Willis. And then when he comes back to Earth, he basically, with like one fell swoop, like kills all the baddies. And then he finally goes and has a chaste kiss with Michelle Moynihan.
No, I believe he's left her for Rebecca Ferguson, who's dead. But
so he
she's
can
not
come
dead.
back to her now.
Avatar 3.
Oh, God. Oh, I can't believe that's coming. That's coming next year.
It's coming next year. Get excited.
No, I refuse to.
That's 3 whole years after the last one.
Let's see. So, Pandora is Pandora real? Like, is it a simulation?
In our world?
No, in their world, Pandora is real, but they have avatars that go to Pandora because humans can't go to Pandora, right? That's the plot. I don't remember.
Have you not seen it?
I saw the second one. I never saw the first one, so it wasn't.
Didn't we do an episode on it?
Of the second one. I never saw the first one. So that's I think what I understand, that like they live on Pandora but their real bodies are elsewhere. So I'm not sure if Pandora actually exists. I guess it does because they want to mine its resources.
Well, to be fair, you understand the lore of Avatar about as well as M Night Shyamalan understood comic books and comic book collectors when he wrote Unbreakable.
Oh, I thought you were going to say as much as that he understood the lore of Avatar, The Last Airbender.
Oh, that would have been funnier and better.
Oh, thank you. So I guess in a Shyamalan twist, maybe it is like we think that Pandora is real, but Pandora is not real. Pandora is a simulation, and in fact, nothing this wholesome and pure exists. And it's sad. And then Jack Sully? What's his name?
Jake Sully.
Sully or
Jake Sully.
Anyway, he commits suicide because he is so depressed.
Oh.
Because it doesn't exist. It's pretty dark. It's a dark ending, and there's not going to be a fourth. And James Cameron can go back and make movies with real humans in them.
Okay, that's interesting. And finally, the final one is Marvel's Blade. And the twist for that one, obviously, the incredibly shocking twist is that the movie actually comes out. I know, unbelievable and not going to happen. All right,
really?
that was our twist ending game. What?
Is that the issue around it? That it
it's
might
never
not come out?
They've been through like 4 directors and like 5 writers. And at this point, it's supposed to be Mahershala Ali, and he's at this point way too old to play the character. It's just never going to come out.
Well, we have AI now, you know. Harrison Ford was Indiana Jones last year, so...
And he's going to be the Red Hulk in a movie I didn't do for that game.
Oh, I did not know that existed. Oh, well,
Captain
thank
America
you for the
4.
game. Captain America 4.
All right. Should we rate The Village? We haven't done that yet.
Sure. Let's do it.
All right.
3.
3, 2, 1. C plus.
Wow.
I think there's enough that's genuinely good in the first half. I think the performances are good. I think there are a few genuinely funny moments. The hard cut from Judy Greer proposing to Joaquin Phoenix, hard cut to her sobbing after he said no. I think that's genuinely funny. But yeah, so C plus. There's enough that works before it just all goes to shit.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it's kind of surprising to me because I think I'm the one who came into this like, I remember really liking this movie. So I'm kind of sad that I'm grading it lower than you, but I did have fun with it, but I definitely found more plot holes than I wanted to. But you know what? I'm seeing Trapped today, so clearly I haven't learned anything.
I want to see it. I have heard the most divisive things about it. I've heard people, like,
I'm intrigued.
My friend texted me, my friend Anne just texted me yesterday being like, you got to see Trapped, it's so fun. Meanwhile, other people I know are like, that's one of the worst movies I've ever seen. So, okay.
That's the Shyamalan way, I feel like. So yeah.
Well, have you seen recently any other movies that maybe you liked more or less than The Village?
Well, you know, John, I have. Well, I've really only seen 2 movies. I rewatched Beverly Hills Cop because I kind of want to see the new one. I do like Eddie Murphy. And I was like, I don't remember the movie. So I was like, maybe I should rewatch the prequels, the original. And I liked it. I thought it was very sweet.
Had you never seen it before?
No, I saw it, but I saw it in high school. I didn't really remember it. I kind of forgot how gentle the Eddie Murphy character is. Like, the way that he relates to everyone is so nice. And yeah, fun jokes. Judge Reinhold is great. I forgot that he had a partner. That guy is good. It was fun. And then I saw a new movie, which I've never seen, called Wicked Little Letters. Are you familiar with it?
No. What's that?
It's sort of like, it bills itself as like one of those whimsical British comedies, you know. So it's sort of like a period, and it's like, oh, look at those Brits being British. And so it's a story about Olivia Colman starts getting these very nasty letters.
I like her.
Oh, no, the cast is wonderful. Like, everyone there is great. So she starts getting these letters. It's post-World War I Britain in a small coastal town. She gets these very filthy letters. She blames her neighbor who she had a falling out with, but it's clear that something is off. The neighbor is played by Jessie Buckley. So it's Olivia Colman, Jessie Buckley reunion from The Lost Daughter, which I thought was also really good. And you were kind of like, so it's kind of like the story of like, let's find out like who did what. But the more that you kind of realize what did happen, the sadder the story is. But I feel like tonally the movie still kind of wants to be this like British cozy whimsical comedy, and so I think tonally it doesn't work, but the story, which is based on a real story, is very interesting. So you know, it's on a plane. If you happen to be on a plane, watch that movie. It's pretty good.
Okay, cool. Is that it?
That is it.
I this past week played a video game starring Jessie Buckley, The Devil in Me. We didn't finish it. It's like a kind of choose your own adventure thing. It's a company that made Until Dawn and The Quarry. They're fun. They're silly. Motion capped Jessie Buckley doing a great job.
She's great.
So I saw for the first time 2022's Sick of Myself. That's Christopher Borgle's breakthrough movie. He is the director from, oh my God, they're...
The Dream Scenario.
Norwegian, right?
Yeah, he's Norwegian. And he made The Dream Scenario. Yeah.
Dream Scenario. And like Dream Scenario, I loved it, then didn't think it stuck the landing. However, Dream Scenario, I didn't really like the last third. This movie, I think, just kind of ended unsatisfactorily. But until then, I loved it. It's so, I mean, it's one joke, and it's like the joke your like uncle who complains about Zoomers would tell, but it's so well shot and so well acted, and the editing is so perfect. I literally hid behind my couch at one moment because it was so uncomfortable. But yeah, the two leads who are Christine Kujas-Thorpe, she's really the main character, and then her boyfriend, played by Eric Sather. They are both hilarious. They play two of the worst human beings who've ever lived. Yeah, it's very fun and very funny. I saw Crybaby for the first time, the John Waters movie.
Ooh.
It's fun, but it's delightful. It's
yeah.
You know, it's just fun.
It's really good.
I saw. Here's a weird one. I don't even know if I should mention this one. I mentioned to a friend that I had appeared in a trauma movie back in the day. A movie called Feartown, USA, directed by Brandon Bassam and starring every human being who was at the UCB in 2013 and 2014. And she, my friend was like, "Can we watch it?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know, I guess." And we put it on, and like, I hadn't seen it since it came out. It held up pretty well. Like she was laughing very hard, and she was like, "Everyone in this is so funny." And I was like me, right? And she's like, "Yeah, whatever."
You were there.
But there are, you know, it's online. You can find it online. Some of the people, it feels weird to describe a movie I'm in with sorry people I know, but like there's a whole storyline. It's a bunch of different storylines. It's like Wet Hot American Summer for horror movies, but like there's a whole storyline with a group of college girls played by Anna Caligari, Cody Lindquist, and Amber Nelson. And Anna's wonderful carrying the thing alongside Avery Monson as the guy they have a crush on. And but Cody and Amber are so fucking funny. It's just there's so many very, very funny people in it. There was a lot of talent at that theater 10 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. Where are they
and
now?
Everyone became rich and famous. Especially me. I play Miles. And I think I'm overacting. Watching it 10 years later, I'm doing kind of a nerd voice, and I think it's times it's the right tone for the movie, and at times it's a little much. So that's my note 10 years later.
Note to self.
It's so funny. I have a shirtless scene in that movie. It was a little treat for everyone. And I remember when we filmed it being like, oh my God, I'm so out of shape. And I watched it now and I was like, looking good. I wish I looked like that now.
Aw, you look great, Jon.
Thank you. Yeah, you guys can't see under this where the camera cutoff is. That's a cue for our typical reminder is if you only listen to this on the podcast, just again a reminder that we now have a video version of this show. Goes up on YouTube around the same time as the podcast. And then, if I have time, I edit a fun little video. And one of our Inside Out video went viral. Let's not say viral. Let's say a good amount of people on TikTok liked it. Nothing viral. But people on TikTok, the kids on TikTok liked it.
And they know what's up.
What are we going to do next, Veronica?
Well, next, we're going to hop back into this time machine and go back to the present. And our options are, I hope, Blink Twice, which I do want to see.
Which weekend will it be? It'll be...
So this will be August 23rd, the weekend of August 23rd. So Blink Twice, that's the Channing Tatum... Like, rich people are haunted on...
Won't it actually be...
Desert Island?
Oh, wait, no, you're right. My math is bad.
Oh, it's okay. I forgive you. Okay, next thing, The Crow. Hopefully not.
It will not be The Crow.
Greedy People.
People have not liked the marketing. What is it?
Greedy People, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And
I saw the
Lily
trailer
James.
for that. That looks cute. I don't think it'll be number
cute.
one at the box office because I first heard it existed a few days ago.
Strange Darling, which I did see a trailer for, starring Beaver from Veronica Mars. It's a horror movie.
Kyle Gallner? He's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but I know him as Beaver from Veronica Mars. The Forge. I think now we're kind of... diving into more limited release stuff. There's Between the Temples, which is the Jason Schwartzman comedy from Sundance, which is probably limited.
I'll tell you what I'm hoping. Here's what I pray. Here in a perfect world. 1 week earlier, Alien Romulus comes out, and Fede Alvarez succeeds in making a good Alien sequel that everyone fucking loves, and 1 week later it's still number one and we get to talk about it because it's one of my favorite film franchises and I see every single one no matter what, and sometimes I regret it, but I hope it's really good. And you know what I pray doesn't happen? Is that Deadpool 3 is still number one at the box office.
Oh God, no! I think Channing Tatum is gonna get it. Blink Twice. Team Blink Twice. I want to see a mystery where people die on an island.
I'll probably see that. That's written and directed by
his wife.
What's her name?
Or
Lenny
his girlfriend.
Kravitz's daughter.
Zoe Kravitz. Yeah.
Zoe Kravitz.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It looks cute. I like Channing Tatum. I like Zoe Kravitz, even though I don't think she's acting in it. Aaliyah Shawkat is in it, who I do love and should be in more things. So I'm going to see it.
McLaughlin's in it.
Ooh, Christian Slater is in it. Are you confusing your Slaters with McLaughlins? Oh, no, they're both in it. No, he plays a guy literally named Rich, which is kind of funny.
He is, yeah. He's in like one quick shot in the trailer.
And Channing Tatum actually plays someone named Slater, and Christian Slater plays someone named Vic. Oh, Simon Rex is in it too.
In Alien Romulus, the xenomorph plays a character named Dave. That's one of the big shifts they're making. That the xenomorph has a name in this one, and it's
Hold
Dave.
on.
Dave the alien.
Isn't Dave the name of the guy that what's his face played?
Michael Fassbender?
Yeah, Michael Fassbender.
I don't.
Wasn't his
was
name
he David? Because that would be such a. Did they really do like? I think you're right, actually.
Prometheus is when I checked out of this franchise because I hated it so much. So I haven't seen.
In Alien Covenant, Danny McBride played a character named Tennessee.
Yeah,
you're right, David. Okay, so what I said actually wasn't stupid enough. But hey, I'm excited for Romulus. I'm excited for them to go back to horror. I like what's her name, Kaylee Spaney, the Civil War girl. She's in it.
Good. She's Priscilla. She's good. Sure. I hope you have fun, and I hope that I don't have to see it.
Well, I can't wait for 2 weeks 2 weeks from now when you and I are forced to discuss Deadpool 3. He's still Deadpooling.
I would love for that to be the least timely discussion of Deadpool 3. Like a month later, we're there with our hot takes.
A month later, we've got to be quiet and not reveal any of the cameos.
I actually didn't read much about it because I don't have any interest. And maybe because I feared that we might need to see it. His name is Dave. All right.
I know so many people who love those Deadpool movies. And again, I've never seen them. There's something about the marketing that rubs me the wrong way. I'm sorry. Maybe one day I'll watch one and I'll be like, wow, he is a real goofy guy and I'm into it. But hopefully that won't happen in 2 weeks. So let's end it there. The twist ending of this show is that it's over.
Wow. And we were alive all along. All right.
Well, the twist ending is that normally we say toot toot at the end of the episodes, but this time I'm going to say it backwards.
Ooh.
Toot toot.
Oot oot.
No, it's still toot toot. It's a palindrome. No.
Oh, that's right. It is. Sorry.
Bye, everybody.
Toot toot. Bye. I'm dumb.